Congressman Mike Ezell heading back to Washington for another term. Voters overwhelmingly re-elect him. State legislators also going back to work soon. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann looks at the top priorities.
Engaging, enlightening, informative. This is WLOX News This Week.
And I'm going to continue to work and serve the folks as best I can like I've always done.
This week, voters sending 4th District Congressman Mike Ezell back to Washington for a second term. Good Sunday morning to you and welcome to WLOX News This Week. I'm Hugh Keaton. We start with Ezell's re-election to the U.S. House of Representatives. You just heard from Mike Ezell, and the congressman joins us now in the studio. Congratulations on winning your second term.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're glad you're here, and let's get right to it. Looking nationally, President Trump overwhelmingly wins the election. Yep. The Senate in the Republican hands. And when we're recording this, the House is now too close to call. Yep. You were telling me you were feeling good about where the House is right now. So Republicans, you're part of this red wave, we'll call it. So what are you going to do?
Well,
there was a lot of campaign promises.
Right.
What do you do now?
Well, I'll tell you this. First thing we got to do is secure that border. Second thing we got to do is get these, continue on with these Trump tax cuts. We got to get our nation protected again. And, you know, start with the border, number one. I mean, that is a major problem. That's what we've heard everywhere. The economy, inflation, and, you know, the crime rate, you know, is all over the country. We've got to get crime under control. I feel very good about it going forward with the support we'll have, you know, working with the president and the Senate. And I feel pretty confident we're going to continue on to keep the House so that we'll be thinking like-minded so we can get some of these things done that we've been working on.
Everyone should be on the same page.
Yep.
You should be able to work towards solutions. As far as the specifics on some of these issues, no question about it. Immigration was a top issue in the campaign.
Right.
You did have a bill last year that did pass in the House. It fell through in the Senate. How close and how quickly do you feel like you could get something positive done?
I think we'll get something done right out of the gate because I know we've already had discussion about the first 100 days. And, you know, we passed good legislation last year for the border, sent it over to the Senate, and it just died over there. Like so many other things that we tried to do this past year, the border, our energy bill, and so many other things that we have been working on to try to improve the economy and make America safe again.
And you had, as far as inflation goes and keeping prices down, what can Congress do to bring some of those prices down and make livable wages better?
Automatically continue on with the tax cuts right off the bat. We can make better choices with our supply chain. We can get our supply chain working back like it's supposed to be without so much red tape and all these sorts of things that are out there. Again, one of the biggest things is get people back to work. You know, there's so many people that lost their jobs, say, for instance, with the Keystone Pipeline, that lost their jobs because President Biden just did away with it. It's executive order. So there's so many things that will help right off the bat, getting people back to work, working with the president and the Senate in like-minded thinking Republicans so that we can move the ball forward so we can get people back to work and get on with what's best for the country.
You certainly have a background in law enforcement. Crime was a big issue in the campaign, especially crime in urban areas.
Right.
What's the solutions there? I'm sure you'll have part of that conversation.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, the first big thing is to let our law enforcement officers do their jobs again. You have law enforcement officers all across the country who are afraid to do their jobs for fear of being persecuted by some of these liberal prosecutors that we've seen that have been elected to office by some of the far left. And they just absolutely refuse to allow these officers to do their job. And then when they do their job, they prosecute them or persecute them. Either way you want to look at it, either by social media or by arrest. So you have officers all across this country afraid to do their jobs, and we're going to put a stop to that day one.
Now, a point of contention for Republican has been funding for Ukraine in the war against Russia. There's been some splintered thoughts on that issue. Do you feel like that the U.S. is going to continue to offer aid to Ukraine?
I don't know that we will continue to fund Ukraine like has been funded. I have voted against that. You know, I felt like we needed to secure the border first before we continue to fund these other countries because the border's wide open, allowing not only illegals in here, but criminals in here and people from other nations who we know are bad actors and have got bad intentions for our country. So number one, I think we got to secure the board before we give anybody any more money.
So now Roger Wicker, he was reelected to the Senate also. He's been an outspoken proponent of funding Ukraine. He's going to be in a prominent position now in the Senate as the Republicans take the majority. He's in line to be the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. That has to be a big benefit for Mississippi and bringing potential funding here for shipbuilding and other things in Mississippi.
Absolutely. You know, Roger Wicker he's a statesman. He's done a lot for Mississippi. He'll continue to do that, and he'll be in a position that he can continue to help us. But again, going back to, you know, we need to secure this border, number one, and before we continue to feed money to Ukraine. So, you know, let's get that done, and then we can see what comes after that.
And as far as your interest in South Mississippi, we talked about shipbuilding. Is there anything in the works or down the pipeline potentially we could have some big funding coming in?
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, if Bollinger Marine over in Pascagoula is building a big ice cutter for the Coast Guard, that has created many jobs. Bollinger's just doing an outstanding work for the country in building this ice cutter, which we haven't had one built since the 70s. That's a big thing. You know, Ingalls continues to get the contracts. You know, we've recently been told, and I've been working real hard on getting the Port of Gulfport dredged out deeper so that we can bring bigger ships in here in cargo. We can get more funds and for the Port of Gulfport and these other ports along the coast, which are going to create jobs.
You're going into your second term. What changes present for you going into a second term? Or you feel like you're going to be on any new committees or moving up in committees?
Yeah, I'm going to get some more seniority, especially on transportation and infrastructure, which is so important to our home district. I'm looking at a possible committee change going to natural resources. I'm on Homeland now, but I would welcome an opportunity to go to natural resources because there's so many things here out in the Gulf of Mexico and so many other waterways and byways and farmlands that I could really help with our farmers being on natural resources. I've talked about that a little bit, but we'll see that when January gets here.
And real quick, how much more comfortable do you feel like you're going to be in the lawmaking process? You got a lot to learn going into 2 years.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I feel a lot better. You know, I have found a lot of like-minded people up there that want to do right, want to get things done for Mississippi, and I'll do what I've always been. You sent me up there to work, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
Congressman Mike Ezell, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
You're heading back to Washington next week.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Next, we turn to state politics. Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann will join us.
We're celebrating Black Friday with huge savings at Mattress Direct.
Right now, take up to $1,000 off Beautyrest Black adjustable sets and get a free solo stove. Plus, get big Black Friday savings throughout the store. Mattress Direct.
In the heart of Mississippi, Blue Cross Blue Shield is a name you grew up with, a neighbor you know, bringing you Blue Advantage PPO, a Medicare Advantage plan from a brand you trust. With all-in-one coverage that includes medical, dental, and prescription drug coverage. And with $0 premiums, $0 copays, a $0 prescription deductible, and prescription copays as low as $0, plus an over-the-counter allowance. Backed by a brand that's always been right here at home. Blue Advantage from Patriots Health. Call us to enroll today or visit our website at patriotshealth.com and start benefiting from a plan that is designed for you, backed by Blue.
Join us right here tomorrow morning for the Doctor's Nutrition Show.
Now, we're going to talk about something very near and dear to your health. That's probiotics and the importance of the probiotic.
Join us tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock on WLOX CBS.
You worked your whole life and didn't know you were being exposed to asbestos. Thousands of workers and families were exposed before 1980 and have rights to cash compensation. If you're 59 or older, see if you qualify. Call KRW Lawyers now, 855-579-3882. This isn't a lawsuit against the company you worked for. Asbestos manufacturers are being held responsible. Get answers. Get justice. Get KRW Lawyers on your side today. 855-579-3882.
You're watching WLOX News This Week.
Welcome back to WLOX News This Week. For the latest from our state capital, Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann joins us now this morning. Welcome back to the coast. I know it's one of your favorite places.
It is. I started here, I'd say, in the early 60s at St. Stanislaus. Used to ski on the Jordan River, and a lot of fond memories. Cat Island, which we now own. We were able to buy Cat Island when I was Secretary of State. So yeah, it's a lot of fond memories down here. Plus, there's so much positive happening on the coast.
It really is. And it still feels like summer here in November on the coast right now.
Not good for duck season, but it's pretty good for everything else.
Yeah, and you were here on the coast visiting with the young professionals earlier this week.
Yeah.
And what did you see out of that group? You know, those are some young people making a big difference in the community.
They wanted us to speak about leadership and different things. And we talked about Cat Island and how we acquired Cat Island over a period of years from Exxon after the spill and all the things we had to go through. And then we talked about the leadership that goes on in the Senate, Mississippi Senate. I'm the president, Lieutenant Governor is the president of the Senate, and we assign all the bills. We name the committee chairman, and how we go about doing that and how a bill comes to fruition and actually through to the governor for signing. So it was good, and they had good questions. Talked about health care, talked about education, talked about things going forward on the coast, which is booming, as you know.
And so the legislative session, the break is almost over. I know you don't get much of a break, but the session will go back here in a couple of months in January. And as we look at some of the top priorities, I think we'll hear some of the same topics coming up. One of the big topics that the governor wants addressed is the elimination of the state income tax. And it's where do you feel like things stand right there?
Well, we're eliminating, as you know, we're eliminating it periodically every year.
Right.
We started with a 3%, we got rid of it, and we started at 5, and then 4.7, 4.4. So every year we're cutting it 3 to 4 tenths. We'll be at 4% in a year from now. So effectively we are eliminating the income tax. It's just gradual, which is business smart, quite frankly. Yeah. Because if you eliminated the whole thing, it'd be $1.6 or $8 billion.
That'd be a big hole in the budget.
Right. We have no way to do that unless they raise taxes. Now, they tried to do that the last time. Was a proposal to raise the sales tax by 2.5% and cut the income tax. Well, I'm eliminating the income tax. We're not raising anybody's taxes. So I think that's important. I think you'll see that go forward. This year, I've been proponent for a couple of years, and I think we may get it this year, of reducing the grocery tax.
Yeah, where does it stand? How confident are you feel like you'll make progress?
Well, we'll get it out of the Senate, and then the House, of course, has its own. But the Speaker and them have been talking favorably about reducing the grocery tax, and I think we'll do that this year.
And you feel like the governor's behind the grocery tax? He seems to be, no matter what the tax cut is, he'll get behind, it seems.
I'm hopeful. Yeah, if we're cutting it, he should be for it.
We'll see, okay. Well, as far what would have to happen in the House, you feel like, you said you felt like you're confident you'll pass it in the Senate. What's got to happen in the House to pass that grocery tax cut?
Right. What normally happens, they have to pass theirs and we'll pass ours, and they have a conference committee report of 3 senators, 3 House members. They work out the details, and then we pass that worked out bill. That's kind of the process. So we should be through before March, and effective either immediately upon signing of the governor. If you'd sign it right away, it'd become effective right away, or July the 1st of next year.
The grocery tax, that's one that just impacts everybody across the board.
It's time. Too high.
Yeah, expanding Medicaid, that's been an ongoing issue the last several years. Bringing up the governor again, outspoken. He says under no circumstances is he for it. But the legislature continues pushing forward, and do you feel like that there will be anything come out this year that's tangible?
Yes, because of the election Tuesday. President Trump has been in favor of a work requirement. That's what the Senate passed last year, and then it ended up dying in the House over some of the Democratic issues. But in any event, a work requirement made sense to me, and I was for that last year. I'm going to be for it again this year, and I anticipate we'll get it out of the Senate. Hopefully get it out of the House as well, and that would be where working people that don't have insurance at their company will have access to Medicaid. And I think that's important. We have a way to pay for it by putting a fee on managed care organizations who have agreed to that. So it's really a neutral, plus we'll have health care for, depending on the number, 75 to 100,000 more Mississippians, just on the basic health care part.
So what's the salary cap on there? Is there a minimum salary?
It does. It goes up to the minimum salary for an individual is like 18 or 20,000. The $18,000 range. Family of 4 is like 31,000, 32,000. So it runs up to there. And then there's some room over that for what's called the 138% part, where people can buy an insurance policy, and that'll be under discussion as well. I think the key to this is the work requirement. I think President Trump has been for it. I've been for it. I think when you look at it, if we have people out here working that are making $16, $18, $20 an hour, and they break their leg, they can't pay for it. You talk to Singing River or talk to Memorial, they have millions of dollars of unpaid bills. And that puts people at a real economic disadvantage, and they can't get a credit card, so it just kind of spirals. So to me, if you're working, we ought to be able to help you, and your employer's not giving you health insurance.
And working towards that, a lot of people out there do. You have an estimate on about how many people in Mississippi would benefit from that plan?
Somewhere between 75 and 100,000 if we stop at the minimum compensation level. If we go to 138%, it's about 200,000 Mississippians.
So we just had the election this week, and election officials around the state are still counting absentee ballots.
Yeah.
So there's been some talk about early voting in the state.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that there'll be a change in the law coming up, and how possible might it be?
Well, when I was Secretary of State, I thought early voting made sense, and I still think it makes sense. What happens is a lot of our people go to the clerk and vote at circuit clerks, and they say, I'm going to be out of the county. Well, it's kind of wink, wink, I'm out of the county. They may drive across the county line or something, but they're not really out of the county as such, like the law was intended. So I think we ought to have maybe a 2-week period that we could have early voting for people. And
you think start at 2 weeks early? You think that would be fair?
Well, what would do, yeah, about the election's on Tuesday, so we would back it up to that Saturday and maybe the 2 weeks before that.
And under your kind of vision, you would have, you just open the polls 2 weeks in advance and during certain hours?
Would be by voter ID, which we have here, which I was happy to get implemented. We have voter ID at the circuit clerk's office. I don't believe we should have these drop boxes in front of Kroger's and grocery stores. That's just fraught with danger. So I think it ought to be in the circuit clerk's office at a machine so designated that they can close that day and run the tab on.
Is that feasible, or I guess that everyone can make it work? It just does take a plan to set it up.
It is feasible, and it will take a little bit of extra dollars because some of my county courthouses and whatnot where the clerks work aren't big enough for some of this. So we have some work we'd have to help them with, but we can make it work.
Okay. And, as far as mail-in, you said drop boxes you would not be for, but mail-in, how do you feel about the mail-in ballots?
We're doing mail-in now.
Right.
Yeah.
With absentee, that's with an excuse if you're out of the country, out of town or something.
And I think that ought to stay like it is. I don't want to change that too much.
Okay. So Roger Wicker wins re-election this week, and in terms of the Senate taking control and Trump winning the White House, Wicker comes into a pretty prominent position with the Armed Services Committee. How do you feel like that the state will work with Wicker in bringing potential contracts and military spending here to Mississippi?
I can't emphasize how big that is to us. And it's not just Ingalls.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to the other side, Stennis. And then you go, we train naval pilots. Now we may get the 135 tanker in Meridian, which we've been spending money to try to get. That's a huge economics for Mississippi. Shelby, all of our National Guard, Army Reserve people they're in the Middle East right now, and I was there in Kuwait with them last October. They're all paid by the federal government. They're not paid by the state. We only pay for the armory. And so there's so many things that are entwined with the armed services. I think it's 15 or 18% of the entire budget for the country, where Roger Wicker is going to be in charge of.
Yeah.
That's really good for us.
Yeah, that's going to be helpful for Mississippi, certainly. And real quick, any potential developments on the horizon? You talked about the coast doing well right now. Anything in the works that might be on the way for to coming here to the Mississippi coast?
Yes, and of course I can't, you need to tell the governor, and MDA will tell you about all of those, but yes, because the coast is doing great. You go to one side of this coast and we've got Superior Optical, who are building the most advanced glasses in the world are being built right there. Then you've got this Skydweller that's building the solar-powered airplane over here on the other side at Stennis. And everywhere in between, Siemens, you go down all of them. It's just, the coast is just doing great.
All right, sure is. And Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann, thank you for joining us this morning.
It's good to see you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Next, a look at voting trends. We'll take an in-depth look at voting here across the nation and what we can learn from the voters.
What does it mean when I say get the BART advantage? It means we have more lawyers and more experience. Over 40 years of winning. Over $1 billion won. Don't take a chance with your case. Get the BART advantage.
I'm Jonathan Allen. I'm the owner of the Blowfly Bar and Grill on Bayou Bernard, just off of Cowan-Lorraine in Gulfport, Mississippi. Well, some of the great food we have here is, of course, a classic shrimp po' boy. It's our best seller. We load it up with shrimp with fresh French bread. The very next best thing is our Bayou Bernard burger. Our burger meat's never frozen, and we make fresh burgers every day. The atmosphere here at the Blowfly is really kind of Bayou coastal casual. We're serving burger, steak, seafood. We're getting fresh fish in regularly. We're offering specials that are local to the environment here in South Mississippi and the food that we know that the locals love to eat here. And we're always coming up with something neat and special to add to the menu too. And it's a really calm environment with the best view that you can possibly get of Bayou Bernard here in South Mississippi. When you think great Gulf Coast cuisine, think Blowfly Bar and Grill in Gulfport.
It's time for Pawpaw's Campers' annual It's Fall, Y'all RV Open House. Now through Monday, November the 11th, new 2024 and 2025s will be priced to sell. Get a free hitch. Check out this new 2024 Freedom Express Ultralight 247 RKS. This unit has a rear kitchen floor plan, dual AC, and front private bedroom. MSRP 56019, reduced to only $33,987. Browse the entire inventory at pawpawsniceprice.com. Come and see us.
I was in stop-and-go traffic, and out of nowhere, I was hit by an 18-wheeler. I know what to do. I called Morris Bart, and he got me $150,000.
Over 40 years of winning, over $1 billion won. You know what to do.
Looking at the electoral map decided this week, it is an overwhelming victory for the 45th president, and Donald Trump is now set to be the 47th president as well. Trump swept the battleground states that were talked about so much. Clean sweep for Trump, and also a big performance in the popular vote. Donald Trump, the latest numbers we had, leading Kamala Harris 72 million to 68 million, an overwhelming victory for the Republicans, not only in the presidential race, but also in the Senate, and things, as we're recording this right now, looking good in the House of Representatives as well for the Republicans. And here with his insight into this election, Impact Group President Howie Morgan. Thanks for joining us this morning, Howie.
Glad to be here.
Now, you watch polls all across the country. You work on campaigns throughout the country, and what happened on Tuesday night? How did it come together? The polls looked so tight. We talked about that it was going to be ongoing. We wouldn't know who was going to be the winner for several days. That just wasn't the case.
If you and I talk today, right now, about where we want to go for lunch, I bet I could convince you to not want to go to TGI Fridays instead of us agreeing where we do want to go. And for the last 3 elections in a row, people are deciding what they don't like. In 2016, they didn't like Hillary Clinton. They didn't want her. They wanted the alternative, and they voted for Donald Trump. In 2020, they said, we had enough of this Donald Trump guy. We want somebody else. There's a sane Democrat who's going to be a moderate, he says. We'll go with that guy. He wasn't moderate. Then Kamala comes in there for 2024, and people decide, you know what? The Democrats are too far left, and therefore we're going to give this other guy a chance. Polling overwhelmingly shows in all 3 elections that they didn't like the person in the House, or the incumbent, more or less, and they want to have a challenger in there. And that's what they chose.
Voting against someone, even though Harris ran as if she was the candidate of change and Trump was the incumbent. She tried to flip the script. It didn't work.
She tried, but listen, you were the vice president. A lot of those things you did when you ran, she ran in 2020, and we got to see all those videos. I mean, that great commercial the Trump PAC did, where it talked about her giving an interview to a transgender organization.
We saw the ad a lot.
You saw the ad. If you actually saw the entire interview, you would see her adamant left-wing liberalism on display, and when people felt that she couldn't make the sale that she was somehow going to be a moderate like Joe Biden. She wasn't in California. She wasn't when she ran for 2020, and trying to sell herself in 100 days was never going to work.
And so it's easy to probably look at the mistakes the Democrats made right now. Joe Biden, we can say he just stayed in the race too long.
He should have never decided to run. I still don't understand. Listen, you can make a crime for him to wait the last minute to ever decide to run for office. But the real crime happened when he got in office and he decided that he won the race, and therefore he's going to be a liberal and he's going to make all these changes in government, which is what voters did not want. They just wanted some normality, some stability. He did not provide that. And with the inflation hitting and the Kamala Harris, I mean, then he was revealed to be, quite frankly, incompetent.
Right, yeah.
It was
the last debate performance was poor. Now,
poor,
the Democrats,
it was horrendous.
I felt like that the top issue that Democrats made was abortion. In the Democratic convention, I heard reproductive rights over and over and over. Was that a mistake?
Yes and no. If you see across the country, those actual bills, that referendums across the country, they won that battle. But they were able to also still vote on a different issue. Do you want to put the Democrats back in charge overall? And they said no. They put Republicans back in Congress, they put Republicans back in the Senate and the White House, and then they also voted to keep abortion rights enshrined in many of these actual Republican states. So yes and no.
There's a fine line there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we talked about the mistakes of Democrats. What did Republicans do right? Well, they talked a lot about immigration. They talked a lot about inflation and the price of things. It worked out.
Absolutely, it did. But did they really stay on message? They still have a horrible candidate who cannot stay on message. Almost 30% of people who voted for Donald Trump wish they had another choice. They just looked at the Democrats and says, we don't want that. So we're going to give this guy one more shot. Hopefully he'll be a better person than he was the first time around.
Yeah, we'll see. And we know that Donald Trump brings a certain level of chaos with him. Can the Republicans, even with all this power, even with the mandate, can they govern effectively? What do you think?
Well, they're going to have a pretty close majority in the Senate. The House, maybe also a small one as well. There's going to be a lot of chaos, but I don't know if the Republicans will have enough votes to really overcome a lot of the say, a mandate to do a lot of things. This is still a pretty divided nation. They haven't decided what to do. Like the Democrats haven't decided who they want to be yet. Yeah. So there's a lot of soul-searching and inward-looking, I think, over the next 4 years to see which each party wants to do, because there really is no path. Trump can't be reelected again, and the Democrats need to figure out what their coalition is going to be. So yeah, we're going to be starting from scratch, it looks like, either way. So let the campaign begin already. Yeah. Hey, we already have campaigns in South Mississippi for mayor and it's councilmen all across the Gulf Coast, and they start those elections in February. Yeah, that is coming up soon, the municipal elections that we'll be watching, and I know you'll be involved with some of those as well. Howie Morgan, thanks for joining us for your election insight this morning. Well, coming up tomorrow, we honor those who've served. Leading up to Veterans Day, we ask South Mississippians why you're thankful for our veterans.
I've had people in my family that are veterans, and I just think that people don't give them enough credit at all, and it just breaks my heart because they risked their life to go and save our country.
We can never forget where we came from. We can't forget those people that sacrificed for us to be here today.
Our veterans have sacrificed so much for our country. You know, like, they sacrificed a lot, and I feel like taking care of our veterans is giving back to them what they gave to us first.
I'm very appreciative of our veterans and what they've done to keep our country free. I have quite a few veteran friends, and we go to dinner quite often, and thank you guys for all your hard work and what you've done for our country.
And we here at WLOX all say thank you to our veterans as well for your service, and we hope you enjoy Veterans Day and the week ahead. Thanks for watching WLOX News This Week.